In this video, I wanted to share some notes on how I've been making shelving in our basement and garage to help organize and store things, made mainly with pallets. And so I thought I would talk about how I've been putting these together as food for thought that might be useful to you. There are two sets of pallet shelving down in this basement, and I thought I would talk about both of them and give a rough idea of how much they cost and how I went about building them. There's this one, which is in one corner and is on the larger side and is a full pallet depth. And then there's this other one, which is a little bit closer to a standard looking shelf. And this one is pallets that have been cut down. And in both cases, what I've used is 1 inch, I ripped 1x6 of hemlock to make my uprights. These boards were $2 a piece, so there's $4 worth of uprights. And then the pallets, of course, are free. I just collect them locally. You can almost always get pallets for free wherever you live. And then I used high-quality PGP screws to zip the uprights into the pallets. And before I put each pallet, I figured out what am I going to be storing on them. So they're custom built for what we need. So these are all bottles that we use for making hard cider or ferments or wines. And so the shelf spacing was measured with the idea of just accommodating what we needed there. You can see the same thing here. These are all glass flip-top bottles that we can use for kombucha and ciders and all that good stuff. And part of the reason why I went with hemlock for the uprights, I absolutely, and you could absolutely, take your pallets and break them apart with a crowbar and use the 2x4s as the uprights. In this case, I thought it would be nice to have a slimmer profile, and so I ended up spending the big bucks of $4. So I've got $4 in the uprights and maybe another $1 in screws. So this is $5 shelving that should hold a tremendous amount of weight. Where it gets additional strength is that these uprights go right up to the joists in the ceiling and are screwed into those joists, so they are unified into the structure of the house a little bit in this case. And then on the ground they just sit in contact with the cement. And that's fine enough for us. Periodically our basement will have water seeping in if we get crazy rain. So it's nice to have these shelves to keep things off the ground. And in this case I took the pallets, you can see, and cut them lengthwise, or chopped them I should say, and I just used an electric chainsaw for that. You can use a circular saw, of course, a hand saw. And you could even do all of this 100% with hand tools and nails instead of screws. The reason I like the screws is it lets me take it apart if I ever wanted to do that. And let me look at the deeper one, which is over here. This one's the same basic formula of hemlock. In this case I left them, I think, full 1x6s, so I've got 2 on this side and 2 back in that corner. And so there's $8 in hemlock. So maybe this is a $10 shelving. I went for fuller hemlock because I wanted to have a little bit more support for these pallets, and Sasha, my wife, puts all of her fabrics and wool and things on here, but these could hold a lot more weight. I think they could each be loaded with foodstuffs and other various weighted things, but it's nice to be able to keep wool and fabrics way off the ground in the basement here. You can see we've got airflow underneath, and whatever we're storing down here either doesn't mind if a little bit of water happens once in a blue moon, or it's on a little platform. So backup batteries and lights and things are on a platform down below. And this whole pallet system is really straightforward. Got things level by measuring up and marking on the boards once they were screwed into the joists, and then putting the pallet up, screwing in 1 or 2 screws, and then putting the level on and adjusting to make sure, and then putting the level across it and adjusting the height until it's level and screwing in the other side. Nothing complex here, very straightforward, probably about a half hour of work for each set of these. I'm going to look at one more set of shelving that I built that's in the garage and talk about that. But I'll just make a quick note. You can see in here I kind of cut corners and used milk crates and a couple slices of, this was a single sheet of 3/4 inch ply. I thought this would be a slick way to build shelving, but I ended up having to take a lot of weight off the middle because it was bowing. These are this is going to fail at some point, and I'll replace this with higher quality pallet shelving. What's crazy here is it's a full sheet of 3/4 inch ply, and so this shelf ended up being like $30 or $40 to get that plywood, and I could have done it for $6 to $10 and been much stronger if I went with pallets. Out in the garage, this is my workshop area. I have 2 sets of shelving, very similar to the ones in the basement. This one's a little different though in that I cut them lengthwise so that I could have a certain amount of depth without interfering with the flow of the door and coming and going. And I used a single piece of slab wood locust to go up to the ceiling members in the basement, and the locust is very strong, and I'm supporting these pallets by finding studs in the walls and screwing directly into the studs with little simple blocks. You can see here's one where I put a 2x4 right into the stud and then rested the pallet on it, which holds it up just fine. And some of the shelving are just straight pallets, and so of course there's gaps, things could fall through, but that's fine. And where I wanted to have a more contiguous shelving, I laid down these scraps of board that I cut with a circular saw, and so I can put, screws and pencils and finer things here. And this has served us really well. Because I just used reclaimed slab wood locust and little nuggets of 2x4 and some screws, this whole pallet shelf system cost me about $1. And this one over here, very similar to the one in the basement, but it's more empty, so it's a little bit easier to see what's going on. And you can see this is holding some more tools and things like that. I've loaded this in the past with entirely glass jars filled with water, which is hundreds and hundreds of pounds, and they've been just fine. And so there you go. Very simple system, not the cleanest setup in here, but it's just the reality of what the space looks like. 4 different shelving units made out of pallets, all $10 or less, and very, very strong. And hopefully you enjoy building some things with pallets too. Share some notes of photos or videos of structure you've built out of pallets that you found useful, and we'll keep the discussion open. Thanks for watching.